Hello, and welcome back to another chapter of It Hurts to Hope by Inquilatory on AO3. Chapter 9, Instincts I Can't Remember. After the rocket spook, Zelqua gets more used to the outside, and to the strange wings that players seem to use. Impulse calls them elytra, and the word is strange and unfamiliar in Zelqua's tongue. Learning that they're from the Ends is also a shock. Surely he'd know of them if they came from the void-bound world, connected so closely to the between-void of servers. No matter. They're strange. And Scar lets Zelqua inspect his elytra for a good half hour before he's finally satisfied. Having run his hands over every inch of the strange, leathery material, they're not pliant like his own wings. Instead, they're stiff and tough, attached to a harness that click around a player's shoulders and chest. Zelqua understands that they're for gliding, not flying. That's why Beef had used the rocket to propel himself into the air. It makes sense, but he still flinches every time he hears the small explosions. It's too loud, too sudden, and it makes his wings stiffen and brain flip into survival mode. He's getting used to them, though. He almost didn't jump last time Scar took off. Now he's sitting outside again on a blanket that's been spread out on the grass and scattered with all kinds of delicious food. Mumbo calls it a picnic, and that is a word that Zelqua knows, popping up from the depths of his mind to supply him with hazy, indistinct memories of laughter and games. Why does he remember picnics? Who did he go on them with? He can't remember, no matter how hard he tries. So he doesn't, letting the memories slip away just as fast as they come. Whoever was in his past, they're gone now. And Zelqua has new people who are willing to be his friends. He's still baffled by it, but he's slowly starting to understand that the hermits just don't care that he's an eldritch being that can rip apart worlds. For some strange reason, they see him as an equal, a friend. Once they learn that he's not there to hurt them, and only trying to escape his past, they seem to accept him with open arms and lots of food. He knows that some of them, like the admin, are still wary, but some things seem to have shifted when they learned that Zelqua used to be a player. "Hey, Zel," someone says, and Zelqua looks up to see Scar sitting next to him. His eyes sparkle like emeralds in the sun, and Zelqua finds himself caught in their shine. "Overthinking again?" "No," Zelqua replies, and glances down at his mug of tea, cradled between his hands. He noticed that there's no longer steam wafting from the top. He takes a sip. It's gone cold. "Oh. Maybe," he admits. And Scar laughs, stretching his legs out in front of him and reaching for one of the sandwiches on the plate to his left. "Stay in the present, my friend. It's much nicer here," he says, and takes a big bite out of his food. Zelqua nods absently, but he's smiling a little. He's noticed that he tends to lapse into his thoughts for long periods of time, but there's usually someone around to pull him out of them. They watch as Tango and Beat-Ups yell at each other gleefully as they race across the field, their kites flopping high in the air. Zelqua isn't as comfortable with them as he is with Mumbo or Scar, but he likes Tango's crackling laugh and Beat-Up's unapologetic energy. As they sit comfortably, Zelqua finds his wing itching to lay against Scar's back. After the night he spent outside with Impulse, he's slowly getting more comfortable with touching the hermits. He still doesn't do anything big, but something in him aches every time he brushes Mumbo's hands or touches his wing to Scar's shoulder, and they don't get mad. It's been so long since you've touched someone else. Covered them with a wing. He doesn't remember who he used to keep safe like that. But it's such a familiar emotion. He loves it. He wants to do it all the time. But he restrains himself, not wanting to appear clingy. Sometimes, like right now, he can't stop himself. The purple feathers settle against Scar's back, and he gives Zelka a quick smile before turning to their companion, quietly curled up on the corner of the blanket. Mumbo is sitting with his legs crossed under him, a piece of a pie completely forgotten as he scribbles in a small, beaten notebook, muttering calculations under his mustache. Scar shoots Zelka a grin before picking up a peanut and flinging it at Mumbo's head. Slender, pale fingers flash out and Mumbo catches the peanut mere centimeters before his face. He pops it into his mouth and continues working without looking up. Scar and Zelka exchange a look before Scar bursts out laughing and Zelka smiles. "I'm almost done with this, Scar," Mumbo says plaintively, finally looking up at them, blinking to focus on something other than the page. "Just give me a moment." "You've had plenty of moments, Mumbo Jumbo," Scar replies easily, finishing off his sandwich. "Anyways, we were going to ask Zelda a question, remember?" Mumbo and Zelda both still, though the mustached man seems more confused than wary. His coffee dark eyes finally clear in realization, and he fumbles with his notebook as he tries to close it up and slide it away. Right. I'm such a spoon. I completely forgot." Mumbo shifts so he's facing Scar and Zelda. He folds his hands together to keep them from fluttering around. Impulse. Zelda retracts his wing and folds them both behind his back. Feeling the shift in the air, Scar looks fairly calm, but Mumbo is all of a sudden nervous enough to vibrate out of his suit, and Zelda isn't sure why. "So, Zell," Mumbo starts, and Zelda tries not to concentrate on the nickname, still a surprise to hear. "We were thinking, Scar and I, that since you're not really, a threat, it's slightly counterproductive of you to stay in the room that you've been in." Zelda blinks and suddenly there's dread. Deep, ice cold, pooling in his heart. Oh no. They want him to leave. He's become too much of a problem. Or maybe the room was used for something else before and they want it back. Or maybe they just don't want him here. Maybe he was just a novelty that they've become bored with. And now they're trying to gently tell him that they don't want him anymore. Why don't they want me anymore? Zelda's mind asks pitifully before he can stop himself, and he feels something fracture in his heart. "Oh," is all he can say, and Mumbo exchanges a glance with Scar before clearing his throat awkwardly. "I understand that you're still not used to having so many people around, so we can work something out with you if you'd like. If you want to stay on your own, that's alright too. We're very good at making quick builds, but if you want to make something yourself, that's fine too." What Mumbo is trying to say, Scar interjects firmly before Mumbo can dig his hole any deeper, is that we're wondering if you'd like to move in with one of us. What? With one of you? Zelda echoes, practically in a whisper, and Scar nods. He's more self-assured than Mumbo is, but Zelda is good at picking up emotions, and the tall brunette is obviously nervous. "Yeah, our first thought was either Mumbo or me, because you seem more comfortable with us, But there's of course no pressure if you want to go off and live on your own. We could totally help you set up something if that's the case. But, well, to put it simply, you're still malnourished and not prepared to live as a player. We're nervous about letting you out on your own, so our proposal is you can come with either Mumbo or myself until you get your feet back under you, so to speak. Zelka sits silently for a long moment, and he's completely sure he's in shock. This is the complete opposite of what he was expecting. He thought he'd have to leave. He thought that's what they'd want. They want me to stay. Scar and Mumbo are watching him nervously, as if they're unsure what his decision will be. Mumbo finally speaks up quietly, hands fluttering around as his voice drops into a more wary though gentle tone. And of course, there's nothing stopping you from leaving if that's what you want. Xuma says that your energy levels are high enough for void travel, so you should feel fine if you want to keep going. Keep going? Keep going where? Someone knows that Mumbo has no idea what he's been through to get here, how long he was running, so it's fair that he'd keep that option open. But every single fiber of Zelqua's being, both watcher and not, screams at the thought of going back into the suffocating grip of the void. He doesn't want to go back. He can't go back to the before, where every moment was lived in nothing but pure fear that he'd die, or his energy would run out, or they'd find him. He's been running all of his life. The one that he can remember, anyways. And anything in him hates the idea of continuing. He doesn't want to keep running, he wants to stay. No, he says, and Mumbo and Scar both jump a little. I want to stay. I don't want to leave. Please. He adds because it seems pertinent, and he really doesn't. He's prepared to beg if that's what it takes. Of course you can stay, Scar immediately says, face lighting up, and Zelko practically collapses. He can stay. They want him to stay. So, I can live with one of you then? He clarifies cautiously, sure that the offer will be whisked away at any moment. But Scar nods and gives him a reassuring grin. We just don't want you in that little room anymore, he says, and there's something that could almost be sincere concern, but Zelqua doubts it. Won't believe it. The other hermits also offered, of course, but some of the bases are definitely not fit for guests, and you seem the most comfortable with around us. So yeah. Zelqua hesitates, glancing between Scar and Mumbo. Moving out of the room sounds wonderful, but now he's faced with a decision, and he's scared of choosing. Mumbo seems to notice his hesitance and speaks up gently. We promise there would be no hard feelings from either of us if you choose the other mate. It really all boils down to whoever you're more comfortable with. And it'd be like living with both of us anyways, because we spend a lot of time at each other's bases. If I can chip in, I recommend Mumbo's. He makes excellent food, Scar adds, and Mumbo chuckles. Okay. Zelka nods and thinks it over for a moment. They've given him complete freedom with the choice, and it's an unfamiliar feeling. To be able to choose like this? He's always been sure that questions like this have only one right answer, and he's supposed to choose it? That's what he's been taught. But here, there's two right choices, and no repercussions for whichever one he picks. He's still not sure what to do. Mumbo finds himself twisting his hands together as he watches Zelqua. The Watcher's feathers gently ruffled by the breeze. His void black eyes are completely blank, no emotion whatsoever showing behind them. And it's making Mumbo more and more anxious as the seconds tick by. He hopes it's not showing on his face, but he is completely and utterly nervous. He discussed it with Scar for a lengthy amount of time that morning, and then later with Exuma, but he can't stop his hands from shaking as he waits for Zelqua to reply. There's no emotion to be found on the Watcher's face. It's like he's turned to stone. Does he hate the idea? Would he rather stay in the room? Is he regretting expressing his want to stay? He seemed very passionate when he said he didn't want to leave, his eyes going wide with some unspoken fear. But Mumbo's never been good at reading people. Zelqua finally clears his throat and speaks, wings folding tightly against his spine like he's trying to make himself look smaller. Mumbo, he says so quietly and hesitantly, it's almost lost in the breeze. I'd like to stay with Mumbo. I knew it. Scar cackles, digging an elbow into Mumbo's side quite painfully. I told you so, didn't I? I totally did. You did, and you can hush up now, Mumbo replied, but he's too relieved to actually put any fire in these words. And he gives Zelqua what he hopes is a genuine smile. Thank you, Zel, He freezes when something falls onto his chest, wrapping two thin arms around his shoulders and burying a cold nose into his shoulder. He barely has any time to process that Zelqua is hugging him before the Watcher suddenly flinches back, palpable terror making his whole body go rigid as she tries to scramble away again. I'm so sorry, I don't know why. I'm sorry, I won't do it again, please, Mumbo cuts off Zelqua's panicked ramblings by pulling him back in, wrapping his arms around the Watcher's smaller frame, and being careful not to touch his wings as he returns the hug. Zelqua stiffens, then relaxes so swiftly it's like he practically melts in Mumbo's arms. The twig-like arms are back around Mumbo, and Zelqua's head falls onto his shoulder, his fluffy golden brown hair tickling at Mumbo's neck. He thinks distantly that someone must have helped him wash it, because it's not the veritable rat's nest that it was. Zelqua's wings tense around them, and over Zelqua's shoulder, Mumbo can see Scar's shocked face, surprise written across every feature. He meets Mumbo's eyes, and the shock melts into a grin, one that makes his eyes shine and dance. Zelqua is still clinging to Mumbo in an embrace that seems to try and soak up every bit of the hug, like he's expecting it to disappear at any moment. Like he's not sure if it's real, but desperately wants it to be. It's like he hasn't hugged anyone in years, and Mumbo tries not to think about what that means. So he simply shifts Zelqua into a more comfortable position and lets him bury his face in his shoulder, the wings spread around them like a shield. Neither of them takes notice as Scar shifts closer and then wraps them both in his arms. Zelqua's wing comes around to tent him as well. And they sit like that for a long while, Mumbo and Scar with their precious bundle of Watcher at the center. I'm sorry, Zelqua finally whispers, and his wings shudder back as he tries to squirm free of the embrace. Sorry, it won't happen again. Shh. Scar simply murmurs, and Zelqua falls silent without much protest. His head falls more heavily onto Mumbo's shoulder, and his wings sail around them like a heavy feathered blanket. It's warm, and it's cozy. and Mumbo never wants to let go. He thinks Scar feels the same way. They do finally separate, if only because they can't spend forever in a cocoon of warmth and feathers. Zelkwa scoots away and folds his wings back, obviously trying to hide his nervousness, and failing miserably. He's scared because he hugged them. He's scared because he showed affection, and that makes Mumbo's heart practically shatter into pieces. So he gives Zelkwa a smile and doesn't mention it. He teases Scar and talks about his redstone, and doesn't say a word about the hug. And he tries not to grin widely when Zelkwa's wing goes back around Scar, this time less hesitantly. Small steps, he tells himself. And when Scar asks why he's got such a dopey smile, all he can do is laugh. Mumbo Jumbo. I'm taking Zelkwa back home now. He seems a little nervous, but okay. Xumavoid. Understood. Let me know how it goes. Bumbo's house is huge. Zelkwa gapes up at it with poorly disguised awe, and finally turns to look up at the hermit himself, standing at his side and fidgeting nervously. You must be incredibly rich, Zelkwa says, hardly daring to believe it. But Mumbo lets out a bark of laughter and leans over to open the door for Zelkwa. Not really. I mostly do redstone and such. I haven't got a business like Scar or some of the other hermits do. So in terms of hermits, I'm actually quite poor. Most of us are builders, so big bases are really commonplace. Zelkwa remembers the buildings he saw in the distance when he first landed on the server, and if those are commonplace? In this world, then these players are truly terrifying in their accomplishments. He doesn't voice his thought aloud, however, and trails after Mumbo through the base, memorizing their path and the windows they pass along the way. He doesn't have anything with him. It wasn't like there was anything to take from the room, except the small bundle of fabric he stored food in. He'd almost taken it with him, but instead left it on the table in the outside room. Impulse didn't comment on it. All right, here we are, Mumbo said, stopping outside the door and glancing over his shoulder at Zelkwa. I can show you where everything else is later if you want, but I figured you'd like some time to settle in. If you'd like anything changed about your room, I can help with that too. He swings open the door and steps aside, letting Zelkwa walk into his new room. It's huge. There's a bed big enough for 3 people in the corner, with heavy curtains that hang above it like a shield. The floor has several bright rugs, and there's an ornate wardrobe in one corner. There are shelves that admittedly have little on them, but a few have lush green plants whose leaves cascade down the sides of their pots or climb up the wall. There are some other things as well, a desk and a couple armchairs in the corner, and it feels more like a small house than a bedroom. An open door allows Zelkwa to glimpse the corner of the tiled bathroom. He swallows hard, wings ruffling behind him. This is all mine? He asks, because there's absolutely no way, that this is his room. Mumbo's about to show him into something much smaller, more barren. Yep, Mumbo says cheerfully, hovering in the doorway. Sorry it's so plain, but I thought you'd like to decorate it in your own way. If you do that sort of thing, I mean, it's fine if you want to leave it, too. No pressure or anything. But this? Zelka interrupts, uncaring if he's rude about it, because his head is spinning and he's so confused. This is so big! He turns around in a slow circle, spreading his arms and wings wide. The tips of his feathers don't even come close to brushing the walls, and it's an odd feeling to be able to open his wings to their full extent without colliding with something while indoors. I mean, I figured you want some space for your wings, Mobo says, leaning against the doorframe. I chose one of the rooms with the highest ceilings, too. It used to be an old storage room, but I got Garden Falls to help clean it out. Impulse doesn't even want to think about the implications of that. The thought that Mumbo specifically picked a room for him, instead of just choosing the closest spare area. And even though it was a little empty, it's clear that everything in the room had been chosen with care, from the plants on the shelves to the downy blankets on the bed. He really wants to burrow into those, he realizes, wind them around himself and make a nest. But it's all for me? He presses again because he has to be sure. Just for me? Of course, Malmo says, tilting his head to the side. Most hermits have expensive bases. We only really live in a part of them, so there's plenty of room. You've been cooped up in that little place. I didn't want to just stick you in another cramped closet. This was too much. Zelka sits down on the floor, wings flopping on either side as he wraps his arms around himself, despite the fact that it's perfectly warm in the room. Soft footsteps move towards him, and Mumbo sinks down to sit next to him, crossing his spindly legs. If it's too much, we can figure something else out, Mumbo says softly. I'm sorry, I should have thought about asking you first. No, it's perfect, Zelka says quickly, because he doesn't want Mumbo to think he's ungrateful. He hesitates, wings whirling and smoothing out as he runs through several options in his head. He settles on something akin to the truth. I'm not used to having this much space, he admits so quietly it's practically a murmur. In the before, my living space, area, room, it wasn't very big. Smaller than where I was here. We weren't allowed to have luxuries. They distracted us, made us soft. I don't remember having this much. So, it's a lot, but it's perfect. It's beautiful. I mean, it's more than I need, and I'm very grateful for that. He falls silent, done with honesty for now. Mumbo seems to sense that he's completed his speech, because he carefully, gently pats his shoulder, and rises to his feet, crossing back over to the door. I'll come by later to give you a tour, but I think you could use some time to yourself. If you need anything, just holler. I'll be around here somewhere. And then he's gone. The door shutting with soft click. Zelko stares at it for a long moment, wings opening and closing. Then he bolts for the bed and practically throws himself onto it. He falls face first into what is definitely the softest pillow he's ever felt in his life. And the blankets are huge and downy and colorful. He draws them around himself, happily humming a nonsense tune as he arranges the blankets around himself in a cocoon. No, not a cocoon. A nest. He realizes that's what he's building, and a strange, satisfied chirp escapes his lips. He freezes at the sound. Pillows bundled in his arms. What was that? He's pretty sure he's never made that kind of noise in his life. Sounded like a bird call, but Silkwood's positive he's not a bird. Is he? He pauses in his nesting and considers that for a moment. He knows that he was a player before he was a watcher, but what kind of player? He knows that plenty of beings are hybrids of some sorts, though avians are rare. Could he have been an avian? Is that possible? He's already reaching for his power so he can open his eyes and see his code, trying to figure out what he was, when he realized what he's doing and severs the connection immediately, falling back into the blankets with wide eyes. No, he's not using his powers, even if it means satisfying his own curiosity. Maybe he can ask Exuma or Doc to look at his code instead, like they did the first time. Yeah, that's a good idea. He's not opening his eyes ever again, unless he has no choice. He's not a watcher anymore. Returning to his task, Zelka lets himself fall into the familiar, unfamiliar routine of pulling blankets around himself and shaping them until he's satisfied. Finally, he curls up at the center of his new nest, splaying his wings wide and burrowing further into the pillows. He knows it's not the best idea to fall asleep now, since Momo will be coming back to show him around, but he's too sleepy to care. A small trill escapes his mouth as he falls into sleep, and he's too out of it to consider what it means. Momo knocks gently on Zelqua's door and waits again, rocking back on his feet. Zel? You alright? He calls softly, and pauses for a response. It's been a good hour or so since he's left Zelqua to settle in, so he's returned to ask if Zelqua is ready to be shown around. But his knocks aren't answered, and he's starting to get worried. I'm gonna come in, Zel, okay? He calls, and carefully opens the door just enough to peek in. The first thing he sees is a pile of blankets and feathers on the bed. Then he realized that Zelka is the feathers, and he's pulled all the blankets and pillows around him for something that reminds Mumbo of a nest. He can barely see Zelka's face, smushed into one of the pillows, and smiles when he spots the closed eyes and slightly open mouth. Face finally relaxed from the constant tension it seems to have when he's awake. He looks peaceful, calm. He lets out a long breath in his sleep, and his wings stretch out further onto the bed. Sleep well, mate, Mumbo whispers, and quietly closes the door, moving further down into his base. He pulls out his communicator and types out a swift message before heading downstairs to work on his latest redstone machine. Mumbo Jumbo. Zell settled in nicely. He made a nest on the bed and fell asleep. Zoomovoid. A nest? Interesting. I didn't know watchers have avian instincts. Mumbo Jumbo. It's honestly adorable. I'm letting him rest for now. I'll show him around later. Zoomovoid. Let me know how it goes. Mumbo Jumbo. Sounds good. Mumbo Jumbo. Also, X? Zoomovoid. Yes? Mumbo Jumbo. If we ever find who did this to him, Mumbo Jumbo, I want a piece of them. And that is the end of chapter 9.